Welcome to ILM Practitioner, Talking with ILM Practitioner Volume 2. I am just making up name for today because it felt fun to do that. I don't know if I will stick with it, but welcome to my live. My name is Sahara for those who are watching the replay or joining me now. I'm an ILM method practitioner and movement teacher based in Toronto, Canada. Hi, Tom. Yes, today I'm having a special guest, Sarah Stanley, who is also a fellow practitioner. We are also course mate in current advanced course I'm attending in Poland. And we were also roommate for the first 2 times. That was really nice, so I hope the 3rd time will be the same too. And we are also we all connected over the ILM practice, obviously, but we also connected via good taste and laughful coffee. So we had little like coffee collective like every morning making AirPress. She was joining me, and also Noah, the senior practitioner. 3 of us in the last meeting, we will be making coffee together. So that's really nice. And yes, so she is based in Stockholm in Sweden, and I am just going to invite her because I can't wait. And here. Yes, accept. Mm-hmm.
Hey!
Yeah. Hey!
Cool. Now I can hear you. I was having a bit of a hard time hearing you now in the intro, but now it works.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know with the internet. Sometimes I think.
Anyway, I can hear you now. I hope you can hear me now.
I totally hear you, and I see you too. Last time I was with Tomek, he couldn't see my screen when we're on live.
Well,
So
functions.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Hey.
This is not like high coffee like usual. It's not up to the Sahara, but it's basically coffee, and it'll do. It'll do for today. Anyways, thanks for having me, Sahara.
Yeah. Thank you for joining. It's so nice to see you too.
Yeah, it is. Cute.
And I guess from next week onwards will be more because the courses join like having like a weekly meeting on Sunday. So will you be join? I don't know. I don't know if it will be every week or not, but it'll be nice to see you then too again.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Yes,
you're
I'm in
Stockholm now,
Stockholm.
Right?
In my place. This is where I work, and this is also where I live. Yeah, and it's amazing. The past like few days we've had gorgeous weather. It's very warm and very sunny. Been swimming in the lakes. It's gorgeous. I'm living my Swedish summer fantasy.
For the midsummer festival, do you dance around the pole?
Is that around the pole?
Or...
I didn't personally dance around the pole this year, but it happens. Yeah, people.
Okay, this is somehow my vision of summer in
I hope
Sweden.
that I do one day. I know some songs that children sing while dancing around the pole, so I'm ready. I'll teach them to you the next time I come.
Yeah, that'd be great. So yes, I should probably just now thank you for people joining.
Yes.
Noam is here.
Cool.
And Tom. Yeah. But I want to introduce you, so let's get started on that before I get sidetracked. Yeah, so first I just I'm curious like how you came about ILM method, like how did you meet it?
Yes.
Where did you meet it?
So I am a dancer also. And I met Elon Lev Method through somebody named Annie Rigney, who many of us in the Elon Lev Method world are aware of and familiar with. Yeah, so basically, I was working in New York as a dancer in a very intense show. It was very, very, very physical and like very regular. I was performing all the time, and I was having issues with chronic muscle spasms, which is the kind of neurological problem that creates like a very real physical problem where I couldn't move my head. Um, yeah, so I'd
Oh,
wake up in the morning sometimes
wow.
and come up like Frankenstein's monster, like having to move my whole body to move my head. It was really, really bad. And I worked sometimes, I worked with many different kinds of practitioners. Like I worked with a hypnotist at one point. I worked with
Oh,
acupuncturists. I worked with
wow.
chiropractors. I worked with physiotherapists. I've worked with massage therapists. I did really like everything that I could try. I worked with a Reiki practitioner. I had tried all the things, and I didn't find anything that felt like it really worked for me and that felt really great. And I was working with Annie at the time. We were dancing together, and she suggested like, why don't you come and try this? You know, like you've done everything else. Like, give this a shot. We'll see what it is. You know. So it felt very kind of low stakes, and I was like, okay, yes, it's true. I've tried everything. I'll go try this thing that I don't know anything about. Why not? I'll go hang out with her. So yeah, I met the practice through Annie because I was having a really hard time with my body, and I found the work to be really helpful for me in a time whenever I like had this really serious physical problem that was creating also kind of emotional and energetic problems around this. And I felt like Elon Lev Method really addressed all of these issues for me. And I came out of this session feeling like I just had kind of more space to hold all of this. And it felt like less pressure. And yeah, yeah, it was very like, it was very much a relief. Mm, yeah.
Wow. And this might be a bit of mean question, but what held you from not going to the ILM to start, and what was your thought process like seeking for all these other methodologies first, and
Yeah,
like
I
what
don't really know because
what do you
I don't that I necessarily think that I had a resistance to doing it. I just didn't consider doing it, and it's because I didn't know what it was. Like there was no
right.
like at the time that I was living in New York, there were no other practitioners working with Elon Lev Method, and uh, yeah, so it was really just like it was like an ignorance issue, you know. There was no, I didn't have any exposure to
Oh,
it, so I didn't never consider it.
right.
Yeah, and I think also, you know, I had this idea at the time that like if I wanted to get well, like I needed to make an appointment with, you know, a professional who I have some distance to, and like there's this kind of formality of like going to see a practitioner who is like the practitioner and like the relationship is very clear and that's what it is. But yeah, that didn't work for me in the end. And I ended up then working with somebody who was a friend, and that really worked for me in a way that I found very surprising, actually. But cool.
Somehow I have like this because I do know like a group of people from the same dance um,
Yeah.
project that you were in, and I just had this like vision that Annie treats everybody from the cast.
She did.
But were you one of the first few,
I don't know
or
if I
were
was one of
you
the first
seeing the
few, but I mean, I started working with her like very shortly after she started working with us in the show. So
Oh, oh, I see.
yeah, but
Okay, I didn't
I
realize.
mean, I think she'd already been working a lot with other people around in the city. But
But just not
right,
in a
yeah, but once she
cast.
joined the show, she started working with a lot of people
I
in the
see.
cast. Yes.
Wow. And how long were you will you see her at the
Um,
beginning or?
what I started seeing her, I guess it was in 2000, maybe 15 or 16, probably 2015. And I saw her like until I left New York in 2018. So I saw her for a few years. Yeah, and
Oh,
it would be like different. Sometimes I would see her like once every few months, like whenever I was having like a big flare up, or sometimes I would just go kind of like for pleasure, or sometimes when she was working, she worked with us in the show for a while, and then I saw her more regularly at that point.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Wow. Nice. And I can't like my time zone is a little bit like two, but uh, like when did you consider becoming practitioner, and what was your
Yeah.
thought process
So
um, going
I
into that?
started to consider being a practitioner during the COVID pandemic, and it was like,
So
no, it was like
after the
when the
pandemic.
pandemic started. Basically, I found myself at
Oh,
home,
really?
like with a lot of time. I was living in Berlin at the time, and everything that I did, all of my projects were canceled, everything was put on hold, and so we were just kind of staying at home, and I had nothing to do. And at this point, I also went through a kind of like existential crisis about like dance and the direction of my life and what am I doing and what does it all mean, and I don't know. I felt then like I need to learn some kind of therapeutic practice. Um, and I didn't really like know what I wanted it to be. And I looked into a lot of stuff. I looked into kind of craniosacral therapy. I looked into other kinds of massage and physiotherapy. And then at the same time, I reached out to the school in Poland because Annie had told me that it was great and that if I was ever interested in learning, that I should go this way. So yeah, I reached out to the school in Poland, and then they had a course that was starting in 2021, and I knew that I was going to be free to do it. So I was like, let's go, let's learn it. I'm ready. Yeah.
And did you enroll for the, because I remember I had a ticket to go to that course and it got canceled and then that became online course. Were you already
Yeah, I think I was
registered
planning
then
to go when it was
before?
like a course in like when it was all supposed to be in person. And then yeah, it changed to be
Right,
like this. The hybrid course.
right,
Basically, I did a hybrid
right,
course for those who don't know.
right. Yeah, so it was like one instead of because the course in Poland was like I'm just doing an explanation part just so that it's like what's happening. So the course in Poland was the intensive format initially of like meeting for 10 days for each modules, and with the hybrid course group it was once a week, no,
Yeah,
every
so we met
Sunday
on
for
Sundays. I think it was like 5 hours every Sunday to learn like different parts of the
yeah.
modules, and then we would meet on Fridays for like movement class, which was maybe an hour or something. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. And then at the end of each module, like intensive for like
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
extra day or something,
Yes,
no?
exactly. And then at the end of the whole course, we met for 10 days altogether with,
That's when I first got to
yes.
meet you.
Yeah.
And what was it like learning this online and I don't know, yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
curious.
So
Um, how did that
I was very
feel?
suspicious of learning this online. I thought, I was like, there's no way this is going to work. And I did it also as kind of an experiment in the beginning. But the teacher for my course online, Yaniv, I don't really understand how he did it, but he did a really good job of seeing everybody. And somehow he could get enough information about what I was doing through the screen and like was able to give me feedback in real time that was actually helpful. Um, yeah, so it worked out really well actually in the end. Yeah. My experience was very
Right.
good as far as dealing with the hybrid course and having a teacher online, and then also like Yaniv, and like there were other people, other practitioners like in Berlin who were available to me for kind of conversations and like real time work in person. So somehow that was it. It worked. Yeah, to my surprise. Yeah. And
Nice. And how many of you were in
it
Berlin
was
Capsule
shifting
at
around.
present?
So there was like mostly two of us.
Right.
And then, but due to some like travels, sometimes it would just be one person. Yeah. So
Right.
alone sometimes,
Right.
together sometimes. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I totally agree with you that at first I was a bit, I think all of us were like suspicious of
Yeah.
like, is it gonna work online? Like, and I think it's, yeah, it turned out pretty
Yes.
beautifully, I think, thanks to
Yes.
Yanni.
It did very well. Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't really know how that worked, but
I don't know.
we tried and it
Yeah.
worked.
It's a mix between like trust and timing, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
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 Trusting the universe.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, so what brought you to Berlin and now what brought you to
Okay,
Sweden
so what brought
now?
me to Berlin initially was that I was living in New York and I got to this place where I felt really burnt out and I needed more time and space for myself. And I had several friends who had moved to Berlin from the States, and I thought that that would be kind of a good way to get to Europe, um, and to be able to live in a place which, like, at the time was still kind of like affordable. Yeah, so I did that and I lived there for a few years. But my partner is Swedish, and I've also been coming to Sweden really quite a lot over the past 10 years since we've been together. And basically, while we were living in Berlin, we were coming to Stockholm many times, and we were like, maybe we should just try to move here. Like, maybe this would also be fun and cool. And we looked into it, and basically, it wasn't going to be super tricky for me to move here, so we decided to move to Sweden. And that's more for like lifestyle purposes. Like there's a lot of there's forest everywhere. There's clean water where you can swim in the cities. Like the air quality is great. It's very dark in the winter and very cold for a long time, but the summer is so amazing that it makes it worth it. So yeah.
And how long you've been in
I've been in Sweden
Sweden now?
for 2 years and a few months. Yeah.
Wow.
I love
And how do you like
it. It's
it?
really, really nice. Yeah, I mean, in my experience so far, Sweden has been very welcoming to me, both like administratively and also like socially friendly. People are really nice, and it seems like there's a curious and welcoming attitude, which is I appreciate very much. Um, yeah,
Right.
and it's just beautiful. Stockholm is a beautiful city, and it feels very good for me to be here, like on every level. I love it. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh. And you still currently also
Yeah.
dance, no? Like and teach dance. And you also, I think, travel
Yes.
quite a bit for that too.
Yeah.
And I'm curious how
That's
that's going
good.
and
Yeah. So I work with a Swedish choreographer who lives in Berlin. So somehow tying like past and present together. And yeah,
okay.
I'm touring like two different productions with him right now, and I love doing them. Um, and it's, yeah, he tours a lot, so I get to travel around a lot, and that's very nice. I mean, it's fun. It's fun to travel. I also love being at home, but I mean, I'm grateful to be in a
Yeah.
situation where I get to go around and see the world and meet different people, and also like practice movement in a different way, because ultimately, like, also what I like so much about the method is that it's very much about movement. And yeah, I was talking to you before, like I spoke recently to this practitioner in Stockholm called Daniel Sjöqvist, and he's a really talented and knowledgeable trainer, and he does a lot of things. But he also used to be a dancer, and he was speaking about how like what brought him to dance was really that he just loved moving, you know? And I something like resonated in me when he said that. And I was thinking about that in relation to the method and thinking like, oh, but what I also really like about the method is that it's like so much movement. Like it's not just movement in the person's body, it's like I have to move my body, like we have to move together, and it creates this kind of like synergy where I feel like I'm exploring, which facilitates their exploration. And it's this thing that kind of like spirals out and gets like bigger and bigger. And there's just, it's a very dynamic practice, which I love. Yeah. Yeah.
And has yes has ILM how has the ILM affected your dance practice or way you practice
Yeah.
dance or
So I had some friends of ours who came to see me in a performance recently, who are also Elon Lev practitioners, Taylor and Timothy. They came to see a
oh,
performance that I did in Berlin in February, and they were saying like, it's very clear that you're an Elon Lev practitioner dancing on stage. um, yeah.
what did
Say
they
what?
see? What did they see that
I think it has
made
something to
them?
do with like the skeleton, the way that the skeleton moves in space, and kind of like the weight of the bones and the way that like movement is communicated like through a limb, through these different joints and articulations. And I think it also has something to do with the way that I use my body to move, or the way that I use contact with the floor, or even like let's say like imaginary contact points in space to move me into a different kind of space. um, uh, and so I think through working with Ilan Lev method, now my movement has become like more clear. I think it's become more linear also in some ways with relation to my skeleton. But also it becomes like these, whenever you're familiar with these mechanics of like leaning and falling that we're using all the time in treating, then you can see them. And so they see me the way that I work with the floor, or the way that I'm working with space, or the way that like I work with movement traveling through my body and out of my body. They can see the concepts that I'm working with. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Oh,
which
so
I was like, oh,
cool.
that's really amazing. I would love to watch some of you guys do some performances.
Yeah, Taylor's next.
We
We're
can
gonna
start
go
a
watch her.
performance company together. Yeah. Practitioners performing. Um, yeah. So,
But how does it make you feel? Like it has anything within your feeling of as a performer shifted after becoming a practitioner to before? Because you were already being treated them as a
yeah.
dancer, and how has actually starting the practice shifted for
Okay,
you? I
great
don't know if I'm being clear,
question.
but
I think so basically Elon Lev method, not basically, one of the things about Elon Lev method that has been great for me is that it's kind of a mindfulness practice in a way, you know? Like
yeah,
like we're like
totally.
developing our awareness around like where and how we move, like how we can begin movement, you know, like we figure out again and again how to begin something and where to send things. So I so it's really brought me into the like the experience of movement, whereas before I think I was more wrapped up in what the movement I was producing looked like for other people. So I was more involved in like a perception outside of myself. And now I feel like my perception is more inside of myself. So one
Right.
thing that's really nice about that is it like takes me out of this kind of stories that could be existing in somebody else's head about whether I'm good or bad or whatever, interesting or not.
Which is so like almost like stigmatizing dance, like training of like how well you do, how well you
Yeah,
perform, or how
no,
high your.
exactly. And so now, because I have all of these tools and ways to like feel and experience and invite and send movement through my body, I'm now just so busy with that all of the time because there's a million different ways that I can look at it depending on, that's our practice is always like taking a new viewpoint to the same kind of thing. So because I'm in a situation where I can refresh that and like shake up this snowball of perception of movement, it's now something that is very like it's become very experiential, like and in a and that takes away the kind of anxiety that I used to have about performing and like performing or like executing something well. Like those stories they're not really important to me anymore. So it's very rare now that I get nervous to perform or something because
Wow.
uh, I'm so busy with the research inside of my body and in the space. Yeah, that's the biggest thing.
I think that last
Ah,
part, the connection went
yeah.
a bit
But basically, I was just saying
low.
now the story, like the kind of negative psychological aspects of performing that I used to experience, I don't experience them as much or at all anymore because I'm so busy with the research tools that I've acquired through ILM Lev method. And I can say also there's a lot of other things. Like, of course, movement is easier. I'm more efficient when I move. I don't sweat so much when I dance anymore. I'm not so sore anymore the next day after I do something, after a performance, I feel fine. Um, and I mean, those things are all great, but I think like for me, actually like the greatest gift is more of this kind of like spiritual release of like needing to be good and needing to be like appreciated and by other people and given affirmation by other people. I'm just like busy with movement now.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Awesome. And how's your neck?
Hmm.
It's gone or
Yeah,
it's
I've had okay. So ironically, I was teaching ELMF classes to a group of bachelor students in Stockholm in the spring, and the day before I was teaching them, I woke up with something like that. It wasn't really that anymore, so I wasn't paralyzed. I could still move my head, but it was something very similar to what I experienced many many years ago. But that was the first time since I started learning in the Lev method that something like that has happened. Um, in general, it's fine. And also now it's something where I don't see it. It's not something that again. There's not these stories about me, this suffering person who has taken on this big hardship of a muscle spasm, which just makes the whole thing worse. Like now it's more of like, okay, this is a visitor that I have to work with, and how am I going to play with this thing? Like,
uh,
how am I going to use this as a subject for research, and how can I make that also like how can I sort of like blossom this flower of my muscle spasm open to give myself creative tools and then also to guide a room of dancers who are interested to move in different ways, like how can I use this as the subject or like as a springboard into movement research. Yeah. Yeah.
right. I just love it. Was like similar for me. Well, I didn't have a neck spasm, but like just the reduce and stress and fear around pain or injury, or I kind of now I sometimes take it for granted that that's not really there anymore, but it's like you mentioned, it can be like springboard for opportunity for new
Yeah.
information. And
It's like, okay, now I have a frame to practice. Now I have a frame to practice, you know? I now we have all of these
yeah,
tools that we can use. So, and like the biggest and the best one is like, okay, let's smile to this friend who is here, the friend who my muscles. Ah, okay, you're here. It's been a long time. We meet again. Let's play. Yeah.
you're less loud this time, which is I
Yeah.
appreciate
Yeah, but
it.
it's not something that I feel like I'm afraid of anymore, which is really great. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that you teach, but also you love
Yes.
movement
Oh my
class, the ILM movement class. So tell me about, because I love it now, but it was a bit of a slow, like, it wasn't immediate love for me,
Yeah.
the movement class. It kind of like gradual. I love it now, but it wasn't so,
It was
it didn't start that
it
way.
wasn't love at first sight like it was for me. Um, yeah, no,
Right. Everybody falls in love differently.
yeah,
It's
I was
okay.
surprised. Like I did my first movement class in the basic course on Zoom with Yaniv, and I was alone in a studio, and I had no point of reference other than just I've had a lot of treatments before, so that the information is somehow in my body, but not in a way that I understood cognitively. um, but yeah, I I just had my first movement class. I had this experience like I was getting a treatment really, where like my eyes were watering, I was like drooling, I felt like vibrating all over my body. I had like an emotional release. It was really like all of the things that can happen inside of a treatment that make me feel really crazy in a good way happened to me whenever I did a movement class for 40 minutes. It was very short. And so I think because I had this like
Yeah.
immediate like pow experience, I just like trusted it and it just kept going for me forever. And so yeah, it's something that I really enjoy so much. I know people feel very differently about movement classes, but yeah, for me, it very much works. And also, I'm the only practitioner in Stockholm. I'm the only practitioner in Sweden, and so I can't get treatments from other people. Like it's up to me.
I
Yeah.
relate to that.
So this is like it's a way for me to treat myself, and it's a way for me to stay engaged with the work and to keep exploring things and to do it in a way that feels also like just for myself, where there's like really no pressure to give anybody anything. Like I find something in my body and I play with that, and that's feels really great and important. And yeah, I feel like it's
Yeah.
also a way for me to process experiences of treating other people. It's a way for me to process like my own like physical and emotional experiences that I have in the world that are not directly related to the method at all, but it gives me a framework to play with all of these things and to let them move through me and to make space for them and to acknowledge them and to let them leave and for new things to come. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I also feel like the movement class, I mean, now I feel
Yeah.
the same as you. That wasn't the way I started, but like it's such a way that you can dive into imagination, in not in a way that not always with the treatment I can get to that place of really riding on the imagination. And I think that's such a special tool within the movement
Yeah.
class. But I'm curious because I know as a dancer you've done a lot of different like dance classes and also physical practice. And how would you describe how ILM movement classes different or similar or to what you've done before?
Okay. So a way that it is different, but can also be similar. It depends what kind of movement class you're doing or what kind of dance class you do. But like generally, like the in Elon Lev movement research, we're not doing like big movements that travel through space. It's often like exploring movement in my body, like where I am. It doesn't depend on a big space. I can practice like an Elon Lev movement class in a small room as long as I have space to lie on the floor, basically. Um, Whereas like in a dance class, traditionally you're moving from one corner of the room to the other. Like it's big stuff like this, you know, like that's kind of the aim is to like move your body in a big dynamic way through a space. Um, Another thing with Elon Lev method that I would find different to like maybe a normal dance class is this kind of like insisting on doing a pattern over and over and over again. And the way that you experience dynamic inside of that pattern, instead of, or the way that you experience dynamic in your body, let's say, the way that you experience dynamic and movement, instead of changing the movement that you do, it's you change how you think about the movement that you do. So yeah, something that I tell my students when I'm teaching is like, okay, so we want to change the way we think about movement. That it changes the way we experience movement, and that is going to change the movement that you produce. So like then Elon Lev method, even though maybe it looks like we're doing one pattern over and over again for an hour, this like rewiring of the neural pathways creates a new situation in my body, which like opens many windows into creative practice for me. So I think that it's really beneficial in this way, but it's not taking the same pathway that a dance class would take. It goes from something really simple into something that's like very very crazy, or something very simple opens the possibility for craziness. Whereas sometimes I feel like it goes maybe
Yeah,
in another way for dance, which is that like it feels like it's like it's craziness all of the time, you know? Like
right.
yeah. But it just kind of like flips
Yeah.
the dynamic, I guess, for me a bit.
Mm,
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah. And it can be get really dynamic too,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
towards
yeah,
the
of course.
end or
And
like
at the end of a
before
movement
the
class, I'm really like, I can do anything. And I mean, now the way that I use it also when I'm teaching is like I teach half of a class that's more or less like an Elon Lev method class. And then we take it into kind of improvisation and we use these things to get into more of what we would think of as like a dancing body in space. So I think that it lends itself very well to get into really like dynamic, crazy physical practice that moves through space and all of these ways we think about with dance. But yeah, it starts in something. It starts in a form that doesn't like that isn't so. It's not like locomoting through space as much. Um, and it
right.
starts with something that's very repetitive. You know, like you do like the
Yeah.
classes, it's like it's one form that you move through like over and over and over again, and maybe there's some like variations, um but it's like digging like deeper and deeper and deeper. And like also I tell people, you know, when I'm treating them but also when we teach, like there are so many layers of letting go. It's an infinite and you have to just like pull off one layer and another layer and another layer, and then you think you got to the center, and then you're like, no, there's a whole nother universe, it's a whole other universe there, and I just need to like keep going, you know. So yeah, it's just that's movement classes, treatments, the philosophy of the work. I don't know, it's just like it just goes on forever. I was treating somebody today, before I
Oh,
started talking to you.
mm,
And we've been working together a lot, and we have really a lot of fun working together. And she has a lot of possibility for movement in her body. And when we were speaking about how it's so cool that like she's somebody who really, it's like in her, she's also a dancer. She's somebody who is researching her body all of the time. And in a way, she's like very expert in how she deals with that. But like that doesn't mean that she's like reached, there's no like outer limit of the universe, you know? Like it could just expand and expand and expand, and there's like more nuance that you can find, and there's more giving up, and there's then more space, and there are more images. Like there's so much more. Like there's no end to it. It's like it's an infinite practice, and yeah, it's great. It's amazing.
I just wanted to share. This is might be like, but because I know you love
Yes.
good taste. The other day I was talking to one of my clients, and she loves
Me too.
butter. Like she loves butter. Uh, and she was asking me about the advanced course, and after that, how you feel. Like she was like joking, saying like, "Do you feel two-thirds advanced?" And I'm like, "Well, actually, I just feel like I'm meeting something new all over again." And it's I was telling her, I'm like, you know, you think you eat them butter, and then you go to France, and it's like, this is the butter. And then you go to like maybe summer special and you had a better sleep that day or something, and it's like, this is
Yeah.
the butter. Like if you
Yeah. No, and we're just like we just learn. You learn the same lessons, but like every time it lands, like it's somehow like every time, I don't know, I just had this image of like an asteroid like falling into the surface of the earth, and how somehow like if another one fell into this crater, like it would just go deeper and spread wider, you know? Like I can have the same like point of impact, and I can meet in a way kind of the same information, but it just like lands in a bigger way every time. And you're like, oh, yeah.
yeah. And it feels such a like profound like the answer, and yet I know it's like just like an answer like of many other possibilities, and it it might feel like sounds less clear. At the same time, it's actually just a lot of
Yeah.
clear answers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
As we
Yo
say in
yo.
Sweden.
Now what's yo yo?
Oh.
How's your
Yeah, it's
Swedish
going
going?
great. I'm doing Swedish class 3 days a week now, and I passed all my Swedish tests in the past
Whoa.
3 weeks, so I can stay in Swedish school. They're not kicking me out of the country.
Yay.
It's good. I'm getting more content also in a lesson that I have learned from ILM Lev that's helping me in language practice is like being okay with doing something bad.
Oh.
Like being okay, it's okay that it's a mess, you know? Like it's okay that it's not coming out like in a
Right.
clear, perfect way that everyone can recognize. I just need to keep playing with the language, and it's going to figure itself out through my mouth and my brain eventually.
I totally relate to that of just like trying just to without expectation just to
Yeah.
try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's taken some
That's
time. It was like
amazing.
I was more nervous in the beginning. But now I've gotten to this place where, yeah, for some reason I'm not as self-conscious anymore, which is important in the growth process. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and what are you like? Do you have anything that's exciting you within the ILM practice that you're like that I like an image that you're cooking or something you're playing that you're enjoying especially, or just
I mean, right
overall of
now I'm in a
everything?
wave of treating a lot of new people, which is really exciting to me. I've been in this state of treating like in the past 3 years since I started working with the method, I've been treating mostly dancers. I love treating dancers. It's great. It feels really important to me in a lot of ways. But I also started now treating people who are outside of my bubble and who are not necessarily dancers. And this is really exciting for me, because like I'm in this position to give people this experience of movement in a way that they just would never experience in their normal life. So like I can be there and like witness this like big transformation in them. And that feels really like a gift and amazing in a lot of ways. Yeah, and then I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'm just like it's a lot of treating now. I decided I put really my intention and attention into building my clinical practice here in Stockholm, and now it's like it's coming more, which is great, and it's really inspiring for me and like energizing for me on a lot of levels. Um, Also, I mean, like something that's been like a project that I've been having going on, which is an on and off project, is how I use ILM method in kind of movement research and improvisation classes for dancers, which I'm
Oh,
continuing to do. I do it like a few, I don't know, maybe 4 times a year or more, depending on the situations that come up. But yeah, this fall I'll be teaching. In August, I'm teaching a week in Gothenburg for the professional training through Dance Centrum. And I will be teaching also in Stockholm in October, and then we'll see what happens after that. But yeah, that's also a very nice way to meet people and like use this kind of therapeutic practice as a springboard into creative practice. And I think that's yeah, that feels very like
yeah.
it feels like a very natural way of bringing these two things together. Yeah, and I like it a lot. It gives me a lot.
Yo.
Yeah.
Super. Yeah. I want to be mindful of the time. I wonder if anybody have questions or if you have any questions or if the world have any questions.
Ah,
Um, I guess I'll see you. Will you be here on the Zoom on
I'm going to a
Sunday with Ilan?
wedding, so I won't be there. I'll have to watch it
Ah,
in retrospect. I'm
ah,
going, a friend from New York is getting married, so I'm going to her wedding in outside of Manchester. So I'll be occupied, but I look forward to seeing it later, and
okay.
I'll be there the next time we meet in the digital real life.
Digital. Yeah.
Cool. Cool.
Cool. Yeah, and before we wrap, I just wanted to, where can people find you online or if there's any other offering that
Yeah,
you want to
so you can find
share?
me online through my Instagram. That's like the best way to find all of my information. I have a link in my Instagram profile, which is ilm.stockholm. And the link is to my link tree, and that has kind of a lot of different things. So through this, you can see like a short video of like a treatment compilation to give you kind of an idea what a treatment can look like. There's also a link to my website, my Facebook, my Instagram, my booking system. Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
kind of that. That's
I mean, I checked that link tree like right before this, and it's so organized. It must be inspiring. I'm like, wow, I better make my mine organized too. It's
it.
like Sarah
Get
got
on it.
it.
I was very inspired by the social media master of Elon Lev method, Adi Elzam. He has
Oh.
a very good link tree.
I'm like, who can that be?
No, he has a very good.
Hi, Adi, if you're watching.
he'll
No, he's not
he'll
here
watch it
now,
later.
but
No, but he has a great link. He has a great link tree, and I took
yeah.
some notes from him. Yeah, yeah.
Super. I can't wait to
Yeah.
practice again in December
And
together.
until then, let's meet in the dream space and practice together on our plane. Cool. Thanks for having me.
Super. Well, thanks so much for, yeah.
Look forward to having coffee with you and wiggling the table in a few months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll perfect the Kickoff Coffee Collective.
Yeah.
Perfect in a playful way.
All right. Take care.
Okay, love
Ciao,
to
ciao.
you. Bye. Ciao. Thanks for
guys.
joining for people who joined.